Hello, and welcome to Misspoken, a lady live lit show featuring performers who are writers and comedians, actors and bloggers, exploring a new theme each month. This is Rosamund Lannon, and I host the show with Jasmine Davila. The following is a visual record of our October 26th, 2018 show at the Gallery Cabaret. This month's theme was Show and Tell. It featured Alison Katuera, Brandy Agerbeck, my co-host, Jasmine Davila, Bianca Zunis, Beth Hetland, and myself, Rosamund Lannon. For more information and news about upcoming shows, you can find us at miss-spoken.com.
Hi. Hello. This mic feels a little shaky, but you know what? We're gonna
fucking do it anyway. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is everybody okay? Cool. Hi. Welcome to Misspoken, which is a lady live lit show featuring personal essays by female identifying and non-binary writers and performers. We are your hosts, Jasmine Davila and Rosamund Lannon.
Yeah, we're here. You can usually find us at the Gallery Cabaret on the last Wednesday of the month. Sorry, we screwed this all up. You go there. We're gonna figure this out. We have a visual show this month. The theme is Show and Tell. And I'm going to step back and give Jazz. Oh, I'm narrating it? Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. You want to?
So welcome to Misspoken.
You're here right now. We're starting this over. It's a lady live lit show, point one. Female identifying and non-binary performers and writers. There's us. My hair was slightly shorter or longer. Wow, keep going. Last Wednesday of the month, you can remember all these talking points. I highly encourage you to do this. At the Gallery Cabaret, there's the outside, you're in the inside right now. It's the last slide, okay.
What's
The theme of this show is Show and Tell, yay! And that means, I'll let Beth take that photo that isn't going to be embarrassing later. No, go for it. That means we have a very visual storytelling experience for you tonight. So without further ado, let's get out of this presentation. Let's kick you off with Alison Katuera. Alison, I'm fucking up your last name.
That works.
Alison Katuera is a Chicago-born graphic designer, art director, and illustrator. You should get up to that thing while I talk about your bio. We coordinated this poorly. It's going great.
It's only going to get better.
When she's not making ads for the capitalist machine, she's occasionally doodling on her iPad and making zines about food, pop culture, and identity. And I think that's what we're going to get into tonight. All right. Give it up for Alison.
Move some stuff around. I'm going to grab that mic. This. Oh God. Hi everyone. So hi. My name is Alison Katuera, and I'm a grown-ass woman who loves K-pop. Yeah. And this is how and why I made my very first zine about it ever. So I've been a lifelong fangirl of every stripe. New Kids on the Block. Immediately followed by The Smiths and Morrissey. Make of that what you will. I was really into Britpop, and this is some fan art I did when I was 15 of Blur, and I got 3 members of Blur to sign it outside of a show at the Metro. And Graham Coxon used to be a art teacher before he was in the band, so he decided to give me a solid A-, which I was pretty psyched about at the time. Still psyched about it. Depeche Mode. This is their, I think, their best era, in my opinion. Anytime Alan Wilder is in Depeche Mode, I'm into it. For a while, I was really into the French girl pop yay scene and really into Serge Gainsbourg. And then I had a really huge moment with The Clash. I collected everything, bootlegs, out of print books on them. I was really into them. So aside from New Kids on the Block, what about these groups were compelling to me? Was there a like a running theme with all of them. There was, but I wouldn't really understand until later in life. So I'd been struggling to get back into illustration for well over a decade, having gotten my first degree in it many, many years ago. And an idea that was hammered into my brain in college was that your work has less depth and is less good if you don't have a perspective or a voice. And at the time, I was a very shy, meek 19-year-old who just assumed that I hadn't lived enough and didn't have anything interesting to say. And my love of music and pop culture didn't really feel worthy enough to be considered as like legitimate inspiration. So I ended up not pursuing it after college. And these are some pieces from my senior thesis. That's Call and Response. I don't know if any of you like that band. That's my ID from SBA when I was 19. I accidentally fell into my graphic design career after college, and I haven't really looked back since. It feels like it's actually a true calling for me, and it should have been my major in the first place, but what does an 18-year-old know about making career decisions? Illustration was always in the back of my mind, but it became a source of anxiety, something to avoid, because I'd convinced myself that I didn't have anything to say. I was out of practice. I didn't have a discernible style. None of my ideas were good enough. I made every excuse you could possibly think of. And then 2 years ago, my friend who had similar struggles with restarting her illustration practice messaged me. And she just said, I'm signing up for Chicago Zine Fest, and so are you. The application's open tomorrow. And so I panicked for a good 5 minutes. And then I found myself typing, okay, I'm in. And my mind immediately went to K-pop. Like right away. So how did I get into this? Truth be told, I never stopped liking pop music, even during my most pretentious Brooklyn art school time. I loved it, but in secret. I remember buying the first Justin Timberlake CD, and to hide my shame, I also bought the Fall's Greatest Hits to literally put on top of the Justin Timberlake CD, because I was so embarrassed. I went through a period of the loving the more hipster-approved side of J-pop, like Capsule, Perfume, and of course I loved a lot of Scandinavian singers and pop songwriters coming out in the late 2000s and early 2010s, like Robin, stan talent. And of course, Psy's Gangnam Style came out, and I jumped on the "whoa, this is crazy" bandwagon, and definitely joined in on the horse dance at a wedding that summer. But that all changed when I was browsing through Netflix one night 5 years ago. So, this documentary is about a concert that one of the biggest K-pop record labels held for their artists at Madison Square Garden in 2010. And it's a primer on the K-pop trainee machine that's not unlike the Motown Hit Factory, where they take young kids and train them for countless hours and years. And when they debut them, they are fully formed celebrities. And it was also a snapshot of the biggest K-pop artists at the time. Because of the sheer amount of media and content the K-pop industry produces, just look at YouTube. It's kind of insane. It wasn't hard to fall down the rabbit hole, and I haven't really emerged since. So when I started planning the zine, I knew it had to be about K-pop. And there was one person who came to mind. His stage name is Leo, and he's in a group called VIX. And in K-pop terminology, he was who I would consider my ultimate bias. Your bias is your fave, basically. And he's like my favorite above everyone ever in K-pop. He's like my favorite person. and why. So like his face is really odd. His face structure is like super extreme. He has a really flat face with like super high cheekbones, and he has like tiny bow lips, and he has like giant shoulders and like kind of a lanky like soccer player frame. Like none of him makes sense. And when I first laid eyes on him, I was like, is he ugly? I can't tell. But I couldn't stop looking at him. And then at one point I was like, oh, he's actually really beautiful. And also, up until the past couple of years, his demeanor was almost cold and unflinching to an almost disturbing degree. Like people used to joke that maybe he was like on the spectrum or something. But it turned out to be he just had social anxiety and like didn't really deal well with like the celebrity machine of having to be on all the time. And he's more like warm and open now that he knows how to manage it, which is nice to see. So all of those pictures were like from the zine. Those are all sketches and watercolors that I made. But I didn't want it to be solely about his face, as weird and beautiful as it is. And it got me thinking about not just how, but why I like K-pop and what about it connected with me. And I realized that my main musical obsessions, including K-pop, felt like they were mostly familiar but kind of alien, Western but different, just like me. I'm a first-generation Filipino American. My parents moved here in the 1970s and raised me to be, like many others, American, but rooted in my Asian culture. But it never really sat right with me, not when I was in predominantly white schools and I'd get made fun of for my house smelling like fried fish when they would walk by, or friends thinking that was weird that we had a 40-pound rice dispenser in our kitchen. That's pretty much what I had in my kitchen. We ate a lot of rice, still do. Or just, looking different. I always stuck out. So my response was to find things that felt similar, but still foreign. So 60s pop music, but sung in French. Rock and indie rock, but it's from England, which shares our language, but has such a singular and unique sensibility, vernacular and accent. Liking K-pop was the first time I'd shown interest in Asian culture at all. And yet it made so much sense because at least they looked kind of like me. And I didn't realize how important that was. And that made me realize that I'd felt really othered in the spaces that I had occupied for so long, but didn't understand why. Why I never felt cool or accepted enough at all those cool kid Brooklyn and like Lower East Side basement shows, or why high school kids who were into Britpop too would never talk to me in line at shows. I was too fat, I was too brown, I was too other, and I was too scared of myself. And I was always just one of a handful in a sea of white faces. And even though K-pop is basically another like gross capitalist structure with, exploitative tendencies, as is most mainstream media, when I immersed myself in it, I felt like what the kids call seen. So it was also the first time I'd ever truly found other Asians attractive, which was a big deal to me. Because in my efforts to not feel so othered, I developed some pretty nasty internalized racism, basically. I'd look at any Asian guy of any nationality and say, they all look like my brother. I would never date an Asian guy. Like they all look like I'm related to them, which is like pretty fucked up. And just like not true. Like Asians look way different from each other, just like people look way different from each other. Creating all these paintings of Leo really brought that to light. In a lot of ways, K-pop managed to reconnect myself to being Asian and realizing that I do have a voice. That voice makes up everything I've shared in this little TED Talk that I've made up to this point, and is valid and interesting and worthy of exploring. And because of all this, I seek out voices of people of color and of other Asians more than ever, and that's what I wrote about in my zine here. So thanks, Leo. Thanks, K-pop. And thank you.
All right, next up we have Jasmine Davila, my co-host. She has read in venues small and medium-sized, like Funny Haha, Feminist Happy Hour, Tuesday Funk, 20 by 2, and Essay Fiesta. She tweets, tumbles, and Instagrams as @JasmineD. Give it up for Jasmine.
Thank you. Okay. All right, yeah. This was originally called Oakley, but I've decided to call it After the Smudge for reasons that will hopefully soon become obvious. So, first slide. Next slide. I have a few disclaimers. First of all, there will be no hugging and no learning. If you're familiar with Larry David, who was one of the co-creators of Seinfeld, that was reportedly their mantra for Seinfeld. So there would be nothing fuzzy and no lessons to be learned. And hopefully, that'll be the case here because I hate that shit. Fuck no. The second disclaimer is that if you're skittish about needles or blood, there is one slide where you will see a needle sort of fuzziness. So just be forewarned, that might happen. It's not terribly traumatic. It's not that bad. Yeah. The third disclaimer is that there will be some boobs in this. Probably, I think I estimated it at about 3 so far. I'm pretty sure, or 2.5. There might be more surprise tits later. So now that we've gone over the disclaimers, we're going to get started. So the last time we met, the last Misspoken show, I wrote about finding the smudge in my breast, or rather, doctors finding the smudge. Afterwards, I posted my essay on Medium because that's just what you do these days. You post things on Medium for validation. And when I did, I got 106 claps, 50 of which came from my friend Nadine. Thank you, Nadine, wherever you are. And that was really, that was great because I was proud of the story, and also I just love online validation from people that I do not know. So you're probably wondering, what is the smudge? Probably if you weren't there, or if you were there, then maybe you didn't remember it, or if you didn't read my essay, how did you? How dare you? Why haven't you read my essay? But I'm going to let you all off the hook. So the smudge is an atypical papillary lesion. This is according to science, or what I call the pathology department at Northwestern University Hospital. This is a picture, or rather 2 pictures of an atypical papillary lesion. It's not a picture of mine. We will see that later. I think mine's prettier. So now you're probably wondering, what exactly is an atypical papillary lesion? What it is it's a benign growth in the duct of the breast. I found that on Google somewhere. If you want more details, please feel free to take a moment to read all of these fancy scientific words. These are from the pathology notes after the biopsy I had at the beginning of August. And please don't ask me any questions because, I know what some of it means, but, if you want to read it out loud, you can do that too. So if you're done reading, that's too bad because I'm going to move on to the next slide. All right. Now, I know what you're thinking. That was a lot of words, and that's fair. A lot of words, be able to think. But I love words. So, atypical papillary lesions, a lot of letters, and so what I like anagrams. I'm not very good at making up anagrams, so I took against the internet to come up with friendlier anagrams for atypical papillary lesion. These are some that were generated by the internet. I think that Icarian sea tall poppy lily sounds really pretty and not threatening at all. They're not my favorite, though, because my favorite is actually Alice papillary ponytails. I think I said in the last show that sounds like a really good name for like a stage name for an exotic dancer. But after all those words, I think we deserve a little break. And it turns out there was a little break in my whole, dealing with the smudge process between finding the smudge and my doctors deciding the smudge needed to come out. I went on a little break. I went on vacation. So let's look at some pictures. This is a picture of me, I'm so sorry, with the cutest dog ever. His name is Marty, which is short for Martin Heidegger. So if you're a fan of the German philosopher, yes, thank you. Marty lives in Boston with my friend Christina. Also on my vacation, I went to England, where I bought this super fancy mug of Meghan and Harry, who I love very much. And the last part of my trip is I went to Venice, Italy, and it was really great. I'd never been to Italy before. I now understand why people go on about it so much. It's super pretty, as you can tell by this photograph, which, by the way, I did not take again. I found that on my friend the internet. Now, it was nice to get away, but I couldn't get away from the smudge completely, obviously. I mean, the smudge, still my breast was basically a freeloader on this trip, which I kind of resented. And also, I was reminded again of what I had to deal with when I got back, because when I was at Liberty, this very lovely old department store in London on Oxford Street, they had this really cool little notebook with boobs on it, and I thought, I'll get this notebook to write all of my boob-related things in it, but I haven't actually used it yet because I collect notebooks, and I just hoard them. So break's over. I'm sorry. We have to go back to all the words and tit stuff. So this is the smudge. This is my lesion, okay? The name of my surgeon is Dr. Kevin Bethke. He's really good. He's also really handsome if you're into the silver fox kind of thing. And I think he knows it too because he was very, very solicitous. So we met about a week after I got back from a couple of days after he got back my trip. And so this picture is actually a picture of a really crappy printout he gave me. I wasn't bold enough to ask for my x-rays or anything more elaborate, even though I figured that I was going to do something with this. Along with this picture, he gave me instructions about how to prep, what I was going to do, all the good stuff. So there was about a week between meeting the silver fox and then having the silver fox, take it out of me. And so, of course, I spent that week, posting very responsible, heavy posts on social media, this is a larger picture if you want to see a little closer up. And then, so I was posting a lot on Facebook, well, not a lot, but just a little bit. And then I thought, I should write a song called No Smudge to the tune of No Scrubs by TLC. But this is all I came up with. I'm not going to make you sing it or make me sing it. So if you want to sing it to yourself, then, feel free to do that. Now, in your head or out loud, you can come up here and do it for the rest of us. If not, we're going to move on. And I'm disappointed in you, those of you who didn't do it. Okay, so surgery happens. The first day I go, surgery day comes, I go to the hospital. And the first thing they have to do is something called localization. Localization is where they have to basically put a guide wire in the breast, because the lesion you can't feel it from the outside, and he needs to be able to find it. So this is a picture of what it looks like. This is not from my localization. Mine was a little more awkward. I was sort of sitting in a mammogram machine while a very nice resident named Steve was sort of threading it into my breast. I was totally numbed it up. I felt nothing, which was actually kind of great. And I wanted to fall asleep because I was super comfortable. You're like, you can't fall asleep. That's terrible. And I was like, but I'm really comfortable, you guys. So anyway, so they put it in, and it looked like I had an antenna coming out of the right, it was coming out of the top, basically like this picture. This is another picture of it. I don't know if you can see, it's like a breast, natural looking breast, with, again, the antenna, or rather, the wire coming out of it. If someone wants to write a song called Antenna to the tune of Rihanna's Umbrella, you are welcome to. And so after they put the wire in, and which, by the way, they tape down, so you're not just walking around and sort of whipping people with it, which is probably not the strangest thing they've ever seen at Northwestern Hospital, honestly. I had, some time to wait. So while I waited, I got to hang out in this very lovely room. They gave me these really cool socks that people I know who have babies always talk about, make sure you get the little grippy socks. And I'm like, I don't understand. And now I understand. It's like Italy. It's like, oh yeah, Italy's great. So are the socks. I'd also like to take a moment to be really grateful for the fact, privileged to have really good health insurance and a really reasonable deductible, because I cannot imagine having to navigate getting approvals for all of this shit and having really shitty insurance or no insurance at all. Okay, so yay insurance. I mean, all I had to do was show up. So this is the aforementioned needle. It's an IV stuck in my left arm. Okay, so no one's fainted. Good, great. Okay. And then right before things started happening, there was a little bit of delay because Dr. Bethke had other surgeries scheduled that day. He sweeps in his scrub, still very dashing despite the fact he's wearing a cap on his head. And he talks to me, has me sign some stuff, and then he has to initial my breast right there, which I felt was like the most intimate part of the whole experience. Which I think is weird considering like he was like 45 minutes away from that point from like, cracking my breast open and like, pulling something out of it. But probably it felt intimate because I was conscious for it. And also, again, he's very handsome. Yes. And so after that, I signed forms. The anesthesiology resident came by and put some anti-anxiety meds in my IV. And somebody took my glasses and contacts because apparently you can't have those in when you're having surgery. And then they wheel me in and I can't see anything because without my glasses or contacts, I am blind as a bat. So I was aware of like other surgeons moving around the hallways and sort of quiet murmuring. We get into the surgery room, which is very bright. I'm lying down, someone's like putting something on my nose. And then all of a sudden, I'm out. Not completely though. They didn't do local anesthesia. They did something called Twilight where like apparently like I can respond to stuff. Like apparently the anesthesiologist said I did really well because she only had to remind me twice that I had to breathe. I breathed on my own, which is great. And then when I came to, like when you wake up sometimes and they're like the sheets over your head and you can see light coming through. And if you have light colored sheets, like most of us do, and it's so great because it's like, oh, the sun's out. And that's what it was like for me, except that I could hear people like saying, oh, you're awake, good, we're almost done. And I can feel like people like moving stuff, like stitching this up and like, pulling stuff out of me very gently. And they're all talking to me like, like this is a normal thing. I get wheeled into post-op. A very nice woman named Mel gave me some snacks like ginger ale and crackers. And when I made a little face at the cracker, she's like, yeah, those are terrible. Why don't I get you some Baby Bell cheese? Yes. I had like, some bandages that I had to leave on for a day. I was able to go home that day. I wasn't like, completely unconscious or like knocked out. My friend Rosie came by and drove me home. This very nice rain like started to fall. Crawled into bed. I looked at my boob and the bandage and I thought, okay, so this is cool. I'm not going to go into work tomorrow because I'm not going to go into work tomorrow. Why the fuck would I want to do that? And I just sort of chilled for a day. Now, I guess the next question is what now? So basically the whole point of doing this lumpectomy is making sure that I don't have breast cancer, right? Because there have been 4 women in my family who preceded me who had breast cancer and 3 of whom have actually died of it. So basically like what the Silver Fox doc thinks is that what if it's going to be anything, it's going to be called like DCIS or like stage 0 breast cancer where it's just radiation. I don't have to do chemo. So apparently that's like the good thing. I think my test results are in. I missed this phone call yesterday, so we'll see. I kind of had hoped that I would be able to tell you it is something or it isn't something, but I guess that'll be for next month or never. I have a follow-up in a couple of weeks. And I decided that, well, I can't call it the smudge anymore, right? Like it's not there, but there's still an ache. Like there's still a pain that, I can't help but feel drawn to because it's there. And, like I don't really notice the pain unless I touch it. And, like there's so many times during the day when I happen to like brush my boob against something, which is crazy because I don't even really have big boobs. But like sometimes I'll just like pull my arm in, like I'm lifting my venture card. And I'm like, oh, or like I'm sort of like sliding past someone at a bar and like my boob like brushes into their back and I'm like, oh shit, that kind of hurt. So I needed a new name. Something like, that sort of work that like for something that was painful to think about and look at, but I couldn't help being drawn to because it's there, it's a part of me. I mean, not forever, but just like, long enough. And it's nice that, well, that's not nice, but it's like, it's sort of a twinge that happens that I know that like when I do touch it, I'm not supposed to touch it for very long, right? So I call it Oakley. Why Oakley? So Oakley is like this character in this movie called Unrelated, which if you have Netflix and you like Tom Hiddleston, you've probably seen like a bunch of times. So he plays like this sort of like young, college kid who's like in Tuscany. He spends all of his time like shirtless and super tan and like keeps flirting with this woman in her early 40s and like sort of flirting with her, but like, pretending like he's not interested, but sort of like reminding her and she's there with her husband and it's all this big deal. This is Oakley, by the way. It's beguiling, right? Like, you know, you get, like, you know it's bad for you, but it's like, oh, I just want to touch it. And like, you know, I shouldn't say away, but it's like, it won't go away. And it's like, we're not going to be here forever because it's only 2 weeks in Tuscany. And I have to go back to my shitty husband in London and tell him I can't have a baby with him, whatever. So, okay, well, maybe, I know it's not perfect, but maybe also I needed a reason. Just have a picture of a shirtless Tom Hiddleston in my slideshow. So I guess that means that we've actually seen like 4 breasts, 5 maybe, if we're counting his. I'm counting his. Anyway, and that's it. Thank you for coming to my tit talk. I know we said that we weren't going to learn anything or have any hugs, but if you have questions, you'll just have to live with them or take to the internet like I did, because I think I'm out of time. Thank you. Our next reader is Bianca Eunice. Bianca Eunice is an illustrator and cartoonist based out of Chicago. Her work has been published on diverse platforms such as Hello Giggles, The Nib, Bitch Magazine, The Washington Post, and Nylon, and has garnered her an Ignatz Award for promising new talent. Yeah. She's also been interviewed on platforms such as the BBC, The Nerdist, and Riot Fest. So here she is.
So I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with who I am, but I draw comics, and yeah. So I there's like no, I'm weird. Like I've done this before, but it's weird to like not do it with a theme. I'm used to like there being a theme and everybody's work kind of goes together in a nice little package. But I guess today we're just freewheeling it. With it being Libra season and everything. I don't know why I said that, but so I am gonna just to back this up a little bit. I'm gonna talk a little bit about music because I'm wearing my shirt that says punk on it because I'm a punk, and I just want to just tell you guys about my journey to loving music and the type of crappy garbage I listen to now. I'm gonna just move this a little closer. Okay, all right, there we go. Oh yeah, now I got that NPR voice going. All right, I'm gonna read from the screen, so bear with me if I read wrong. I went to public school. It would be an understatement to say that I grew up in a strict Christian upbringing. When I say I grew up Christian, I mean Bible Belt, hallelujah. After school, we go to church 8 days a week. Jesus is the reason for the season. I actually married Jesus in a purity ball, and my mom still thinks I'm a virgin, and I'm 31. Kind of Christian. And here's my lovely mother over here going, "You still saving yourself, baby?" And I'm going, yep. But most importantly, the type of Christian I grew up as meant no secular music. So here's a tape. Again, I said I was 31, so I'm like a 90s kid, of Bone Thugs and Harmony that I was not allowed to listen to. So none of those crossroads for me. I dang near missed the Spice Girl craze if people didn't constantly yell, "Hey, Scary Spice" at me. And this is true. I mean, it's better than being yelled at, "Hey, Macy Gray." And here's a group of little shits going, "Hey, Scary Spice," and there's me. And true story, I actually, it had to be maybe 4th or 5th grade. I showed up with little buns in, and everybody was like, "You look like Scary Spice." And I was like, I don't know what that means. But then I eventually, like way too late. I didn't learn about the Spice Girls until after their movie came out. I feel like that's like that was almost past their prime. So, oh well. You see, after my parents' divorce, my mom found a new man in her life, and his name was Jesus Christ. So here's my mother and a familiar white Jesus. I could have did like black Jesus, but I figured let's keep it safe and do white Jesus. It's always white Jesus when it's bad. Sorry. No offense, oh my God. This is not to say my parents weren't once cool back in the day. They were a pair of fashion-forward club kids going to Neo, Excalibur with a gaggle of goth, punk, and queer friends. But divorce changes people. So my parents, just a little backstory, met at Manny's Deli, like true Chicago kids. My dad worked behind the counter. My mom thought he was cute. Got herself a Reuben and a husband. But it didn't work, so I didn't save the marriage. I'm sorry. Divorce comes like a wave that reminds you your happily ever after you once thought your life was going to be is no longer. And now you're middle-aged, and you have to start all over again with 3 young children. And because Jesus said so, my mom threw away her entire record collection, including original presses of Kiss, Clash, Michael Jackson. Funny story, my mom actually pulled out some that she saved a few years ago. She was like, I actually didn't throw this one out. And I was like, woo. And I think it was like Thriller or something. I was like, thank God, that was a good one. It's like Mint. And I was like, can I have it? And she was like, no. I missed almost every craze growing up, from Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. I don't have any deep feelings or cognitive connections with late 90s or early aughts bands because at home, I can listen to 2 things, oldies or Jesus music. So here's like my best friends from elementary school going, I love Justin. I love Brian. Bianca, who do you like? I like Kyle. Yeah, Kyle. Because there was a Kyle. There's always a Kyle. So my pop stars were James Brown, David Bowie, Stevie Wonder, and so on. In fact, for my 11th birthday, I had a Motown-themed birthday party that only 2 of my friends showed up because I was the coolest nerd in town. And my best friend still reminds me to this day that she won the lip sync challenge to Mary Wells' My Guy. And when I was drawing this, I was like kind of like having that moment where like you realize that you're queer. And I was like, yeah, you were 11 and you threw a Motown party with a lip sync challenge in it. So obviously, no straight kid did that. And then there's my friends going, my guy, and all that fun stuff. So this also means that I have a repertoire of 70s music stuck in my head forever, and I have yet to meet someone who can outsing Steely Dan, Elton John, Wings, Supertramp, we can throw Fleetwood Mac in there, under the age of 35. Even now, my mom jokes that I have grandpa taste in music, but that's fine by me. Like I went to Riot Fest a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I really got to see Elvis Costello. My mom was like, you're an old man. But here I am with my cat, and I'm singing Supertramp. Take a look at my girlfriend. She's the only one I got, and she's like, please put me down. So, in my undies, as any person in their home would do. Don't put clothes on when you're drawing yourself at home. Come on, be comfortable. My brother rebelled as best he could and would teach me the music that he was into, but we have almost a 10-year difference, and going around the playground singing, zombie, 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 doesn't make you cool. It makes you a weirdo. And so there's my friends off screen running away saying, stop being weird, Bianca. So I thought liking the Cranberries would make me the popular kid. For some reason, my mom got it in her head that if the music came from her generation or before, it was cool with her, it was cool with Jesus, versus the evil devil music my generation made. And I can't say I was too upset about this because by the time I got to my teens, I got clever and realized it included punk and goth music. So here I am at the thrift store with my mom and with a $1 album of Adam Ant. Can I get this? And she's like, sure, throw it in the fucking cart, I don't care. And because my mom was a Cyndi Lauper type punk girl herself, sharing this music between us became sacred. And all I really needed to do was butter up with a glass of Jesus juice, which is what the church kids call wine. And soon she'd be singing Thompson Twins, going, yeah, I don't know nothing about this shit right here. So, which is true. Literally, all it took was a glass of wine. She'd be like, hold me now, warm my heart, stay with me. I may no longer be the Bible thumper I was, but it kept me out of trouble, gave me a moral compass. I got agape love for everybody and all that shit. Plus, some of my greatest memories were I would just spend hours listening to XRT or any throwback radio station, praying that they would play the extended version of Tainted Love that includes the great Gloria Jones original lyrics. And for those who don't know who Gloria Jones is, well, let me tell you, she was a black woman who the Soft Cell covered the song, and she got pregnated by the great late Mark Bolan, who was the lead singer of T-Rex, and they have a beautiful child together, and he died. But even more fun fact that you don't need, David Bowie paid for his schooling after Mark Bolan died. I know. So anyway, so here's me sitting in front of a cassette player. And back in the day, you used to have to take these things called tapes, and you had to stick like paper in it. I used to take my mom's like Kenneth Copeland or whatever tapes of like preachers and record over it with my music. But she would still think that I was like listening to like, I was like, yeah, come on, this is a ministry right here, and it's like George Harrison, as this says. So anyway, as a kid, I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to be a part of the feds. I wanted to understand what everybody was talking about, because maybe then I'd feel like I belonged. I was the weird kid. I was the girl in the Breakfast Club that was shaking dandruff on her drawing. Like, I did not fit in. I was in the back of the room reading Sandman. But nowadays, I don't give a flip. My upbringing cultivated the person I am today, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. So here is, let's say she's 9. I'm judging by the hair, maybe a little younger, wearing her school uniform. I don't know how old I am in my own drawing. And I ask myself, will I ever fit in? And me today, wearing a nice Resist t-shirt, is saying, nah, it's gonna be great though. And so, there we go. That's it.
All right, there we go. Let's keep this going with Beth Hetland. Beth Hetland, oh, yeah. She's a cartoonist and adjunct professor teaching comics of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. That's not a coincidence, because she's an alumni of both SAIC and the Center for Cartoon Studies. Cartoon studies. Her most recent work is Half Asleep, a sci-fi coming-of-age story created with her best friend Kyle O'Connell. She can be found at her drawing desk or in front of a classroom, but most reliably online at bethhetland.com. Give it up for Beth!
Y'all are too kind. I'm a little nervous, so I am going to read. I hope that's cool. We'll see what happens. So if you don't know me, I'm the type of person who gets really emotionally attached to things, and emotional in general, especially attached to things I've had for a really long time or were given to me by a friend. I often name the appliances in my apartment that make noise. I feel like they're trying to have a conversation, and I'm all about that. And I have a hard time letting things go that have sentimental value. This chair doesn't have a name, but it did have a brother once. I've had this chair for 9 years and 9 months, which basically is long enough to say I should say I have it for 10 years. This chair and its sibling were adopted at the Salvation Army off the Grand Line. Y'all know the one. In 2009, my best friend Kyle and I were building a comics library/reading room for our senior exhibition in undergrad. And we were scouring the city's secondhand stores, searching for really nice upholstered chairs for people to sit and read in. The kind of chair that you really want to curl up and just spend time with a book. These two chairs were close to what we wanted, but were the first ones that we had found, so we immediately bought them. I think we paid $45 for the pair, and I have to say that riding the CTA with not one, but two very fancy chairs with your best friend is hilariously decadent, and I 10 out of 10 would do again. After the show, we gave some of these chairs to our friends and kept a few for ourselves. I took these two and another chair lovingly referred to as my grandma chair. No grandma added. The twins quickly became the chairs that I liked doing work in the most. When I moved to Vermont for grad school, I got my first desk, which is just a dining room table, so you know. And this chair became my default drawing chair, as it was one of 3 chairs I owned. Well, technically 2 out of 3. Grad school was really intense. I went to an all-comic book grad program, and the amount of time spent in my drawing chair was overwhelmingly high. Something strange happens when you're pushed to create work day in and day out. You improve. If you're me, you also set up strange rituals to help you create work when you're stuck, and you rely on your community to lift you up when you're down. I began to ritualize my studio practice. This specific chair, this specific desk, these specific albums. No technology, no interruptions. Many of these rituals have stayed with me ever since. I've gotten slightly less obsessive in some ways. Moving back to Chicago after school was inevitable. I love this city. However, one of the two chairs did not fare very well on the journey. I blame the moving company. About 4 years ago, the main support on the front of that chair collapsed. We parted ways, and then there was one. Now this chair, the special one, the magic one, it has always had wobbly front legs that need routine tightening. Its upholstery is sagged because unlike regular chairs that have particle board base or a masonite base or something underneath the stuffed bit where your butt goes, this chair has nothing. I don't mind though. I'm very superstitious about my drawing spaces. I feel somewhere deep inside of my gut that they retain special energy or magic, and I would never allow any of my roommates, or even now my husband, to set anything on my drawing desk. No one is allowed to sit in my special drawing chair. Call me crazy, but to me it's important to treat these spaces with respect and reverence. I mentioned I'm obsessive about it. Recently, I began to realize while working on this massive comic series that my body was not feeling its best while using a flat surface desk and sitting in the magic chair for 12 plus hours a day. I made the momentous decision to swap my drawing desk, which was flat, and my digital desk, which had been put flat but is actually an angled surface, so that I could work at the angled surface. This move felt like the very first betrayal. My magic chair was too short to use with the angled desk. My former drawing desk, which is now a computer and schoolwork desk, is now not a drawing desk. My back and neck are grateful, but there's part of me that feels suspicious about this new guy in town. I mean, who does he think he is, really? Am I gonna make better work? I guess time will tell. For a while, I kept my magic chair as my computer desk chair, but since my husband and I both use the computer, I have moved my magic chair to sit to the side of the desk so that he won't sit in it. I'm sorry, I just feel like if it were to break, I don't want to blame him, okay? This chair is getting on in years. Its leg wobble is so much more prominent. Its butt sags at the saggiest moment yet. My poor magic chair sits to the side of a desk. It's defunct. It's removed from purpose. Well, it has a little purpose. It provides a favorite nap spot for my cats. So that being said, I'm currently on a search for a new drawing chair. An adjustable one with better back support, because I'm getting older and 12 plus hours a day ain't as easy as it used to be. The thing is, though, I just can't bring myself to throw this barely standing chair out. I rarely sit in it. I cringe noticeably whenever someone goes to plop down, fearing it will be the moment it decides to give up. But this magic chair and we've been through so much. We've done so much together. Almost every page of comics I've ever drawn was done in this chair. As dumb as it seems to be emotional about an object, especially an object that doesn't even have a name, I just don't think I'm ready to say a final goodbye to such a loyal, minimally supportive, and very old friend. Thank you.
This.
I should really have your bio memorized by now. Probably. The product of 9 years in San Francisco and 8 years in St. Paul, Rosamund Lannon is pleasantly surprised to have lived in Chicago for over a decade. During that time, she has been published by internet periodicals, performed stories around the city, and consumed many carne asada burritos. These days, she's pretty into speculative fiction, co-hosting Lady Live Lit Show Misspoken, and trying to write essays that make you feel things, think things, or at the very least, laugh.
Yeah. Woo. All right. You want to take it off? Yay! So, I was recently talking to my cousin. That's her on the right or your left, the one that does not look like me. I'm gonna pull this down. She's 23 and she's done things like call the Midwest flyover country. But let's cut her some slack. She was born in Brooklyn and still makes this face in photos. And when I first became aware of her ignorance, I sputtered for a while about East Coast snobbery and cheap rents and a thriving local art scene. But then I decided I was gonna do her one better. I would make her a list. 23-year-olds love lists. That would show her. It would also provide guidance should she ever decide to move out of her $2,000 closet and explore the numerous delights of this part of the country. So without further ado, I present a highly scientific and unbiased ranking of the Midwestern states. Second edition. Why second edition? I forgot about South Dakota the first time around. Sorry, South Dakota. I'm the worst. All right, but actually I'm not. Let's start with the worst state. Don't even okay, I was gonna say don't even act like you're surprised, but no one is. Indiana is impressive for its ability to somehow encompass the worst of the Midwest and the South. You get Midwest uptightness and sweet Southern poison, all in one shitty state just over the border from one of the best, spoilers. Indiana brought us Mike Pence. Many terrible fucking laws, which all stem out of evangelical Christianity. But okay, even without all that notwithstanding, Indiana's kind of the worst. Here's the thing. There's not that much to do there outside of Indianapolis and Fort Worth. The air quality is poor. It's the #1 state for road rage. Really, you can actually look this up. And last but not least, it's really easy to get a gun in Indiana and bring it to Chicago. And then Chicago gets really stupid names like Chirac because I get put more research into this terrible presentation than many people do into their political opinions. Sorry guys, got a lot to get out this week and here you are. Someone start working on a cute nickname slamming Indiana, maybe like Indiana-Ganistan, because here's the thing, no one fights me on this ranking, even people from Indiana. All right, next up we have South Dakota. South Dakota is isolated and remote, but it does have a lot of stunning natural beauty. You've got Mount Rushmore, the Badlands, the Black Hills. Very pretty. Also, it's not Indiana. Number 10, Nebraska. So I could be convinced to move this one up higher. I was really into Saddle Creek Records in college. And outside of Omaha, though, Nebraska seems like another red state that goes hard for Midwest nice, but its legislation records suggest otherwise. Still, like the frontrunner of Bright Eyes, Connor Oberst, it is very pretty. There's a pretty shot of Nebraska. Also, it's not Indiana. Number 9, Kansas. In 3rd grade, I learned that Kansas was the breadbasket of America. I love bread, and I think that that's very cool. I have some relatives in Lawrence, which lets me know that there are at least 3 Jewish people in the state. Related to that last sentence, I don't care that much about sports. But if you like, sorry, that's a stereotype. If my aunts are listening to this, I'm sure there are Jewish people that like sports. But if you like college basketball and rolling prairies, Kansas has its charms. Number 8, Missouri. The 3 native Missourians that I talked to said Missouri should be lower, or maybe even not on the list at all. I'm keeping it here because of St. Louis and Kansas City. But yeah, how many states come slapped with a warning from the NAACP? Let's move on, even if Missouri can't. Number 7, Ohio. Sorry, Andrew, not sorry. Similar to Missouri, Ohio has some great cities and a population that I still haven't forgiven for the 2016 election. I'm not even giving it a picture slide. Next. Number 6, North Dakota. I have never been to North Dakota, and I'll be honest, it is low on my list of travel destinations. However, based on my friend group, because this is a scientific, not biased list, I estimate that it is composed of roughly 96% beautiful, dark-haired women. Here are some of them that I am close to: Kara Luger, Emily Hillerin, Sarah Fox. My friends did not consent to be part of this presentation, but as good North Dakotans, I trust that they'll forgive me. Number 5, Iowa. When I was in we're getting to the good ones, guys. We're safe now. We passed all the shitty Midwest states. When I was in 5th grade, I took a field trip to Iowa to dig up fossils, because Iowa is actually very rich in fossils. I did not find any fossils, but it was really fun. Iowa also has pie shakes. A really good writing college. Yay, Iowa City Writers? Nope, okay. And an annual festival dedicated to the Davenport native Bix Beiderbecke. Bix Beiderbecke was an amazing jazz musician. Iowa is an interesting state. Give Iowa a try. You might be surprised. Number 4, Wisconsin. Okay, calm down. I know you guys all love Wisconsin. It's like Chicago's country estate. And to be fair, Wisconsin is pretty cool. You've got Madison, you've got Milwaukee, you've got Appleton, the home of Harry Houdini. It also has many places that you can go tubing. Yes, let's agree. Wisconsin has a lot going for it, but it's no number 3, Michigan. Oh, well, tough luck, guys. My husband was born in Ann Arbor, and I'm convinced it's 40% of the reason he's such a nice person. There's also Detroit, a scrappy city that is now home to half of White Humboldt Park. They've also got Grand Rapids, which has a cool art scene and is secretly run by Amway. That's completely true. Look it up. It's very weird. And don't forget about the UP, which is ridiculously good looking. Yes, Michigan is great. The second greatest M state on this list. That's right. I'm talking about Minnesota. I moved to St. Paul, Minnesota from San Francisco, California when I was 10 years old. I may have booked it for the number 1 state on this list once I got a college acceptance letter and never came back. But really, I could have done so much worse. Minnesota brought us Prince. F. Scott Fitzgerald. And Josh Hartnett, who between the 3 of them collectively ushered me into puberty. I don't mean that literally, although Josh Hartnett did go to school a few miles away, and I heard he was very nice. Yes, Minnesota has a thriving music scene, the Mississippi River, and a small, reluctant piece of my heart. But it's no number 1. You guys ready for this? All right, number one, Illinois, because let's be real, Chicago over everything. Thank you.